So we finally got a verdict in the Owen Farrell situation, and one that's probably appeased a lot of people and probably was the right decision from the beginning, but which would also have set about several more questions ahead of the World Cup. Just in a nutshell, Owen Farrell got banned for 4 weeks. The Disciplinary Committee, and we'll read it now, called the decision of the original Disciplinary Committee, the Appeals Committee called the decision of the original Disciplinary Committee manifestly wrong, which is not a huge one on the English language, but that's pretty legally strong terms to just say you really messed up. I could use another couple of words for that, but I think that's pretty much what it comes down to. And so now Farrell's got 4 weeks, probably, which is the ban he should have probably got in the beginning. So I don't know, it's one of these things where rugby continues to make something that's supposed to be common sense, that's supposed to be an easy decision, into such a difficult sort of circus. And we've had so much talk about it. It's distracted everything from England's World Cup preparations. They've had to deal with sideshows, and of course when Billy Vunipola, which at this point we haven't received a verdict on him yet, but he's also likely to get about 3 weeks, I reckon, because it's pretty much the same type of tackle. And it just makes you wonder, how does rugby go down this road the whole time and make sort of almost a massive thing out of something that should be fairly simple to do? Of course, background being Owen Farrell being a serial offender, he's got away with these sort of tackles before, especially in 2018 against the Springboks. We remember that one very fondly, or not so fondly. Owen's the type of guy he's an incredible competitor, great player, nothing against him personally, but he does tend to get away with these things. And after he got banned for 3 weeks, after England sort of almost manipulated that ban to make sure that he played in the Six Nations, he went off to tackle school. He was supposed to have altered his tackle, and he didn't, and he got away with it. And then to get the red card against Wales, and after that not tucking his shoulder against Basham, and then the Disciplinary Committee, which came out with this bizarre ruling, which sort of put the whole rugby world on notice, and caused so much uproar and anger around the world about it, that we're all sitting here, sort of wondering why we're still talking about this like a week later. But as it is, that's what's happened. He's now got 4 weeks ban. He's going to miss the opening games. He'll miss. The ban takes into account that he could have played against Ireland last week, which is, I suppose, fair enough. He could have played against Fiji this weekend coming up, and he will definitely miss the England games against Argentina and Japan in the World Cup, which poses the question, does Steve Borthwick still take him along to the tournament if he misses the opening 2 games? I think they probably will. I think the same will probably happen with Vunipola. It'd be interesting to see what that decision is, and we wait to see how England handle it. But even if they do take him, the circus is going to follow him to the World Cup. Anything he does is going to be closely scrutinised, and it's going to be a bit of a cloud hanging over England the whole way. They're going to have to answer questions on that from journalists at the tournament the whole time. And you sort of wonder to yourself, is it worth it? It depends, I suppose, how much he's their captain. So they'll feel it's worth it. They'll feel it's part of what they need to do. I suppose all those sideshows then come with it. So, there's some other questions that remain as well, which we'll get to now. But let's first have a look at the verdict. Okay, so the basically came out on England's website. The appeal committee met on Tuesday, 22nd August. Of course, it was a 12-hour appeal. I think it was quite ridiculous, 12 to 13 hours, for something that seems to be a simple decision for the rest of us. But obviously, there were lots of legal arguments there, and England probably fought tooth and nail to try and get their player off, which is understandable. The failure to attempt to wrap was judged to be an important element of the foul play review officer's report, and had led to the upgrading of the yellow card to a red card during the match. As this element did not feature in the original decision, the appeal committee decided it was in the interests of justice to hear the case afresh on that key point alone, which included hearing from the player. So it came and they did the entire. Normally, appeals don't really take fresh evidence or re-litigate the case. They simply look at the outcomes and the facts, and they need to see if there's anything that's been changed, and that's what World Rugby would have been banking on when they did that. But it says, following the review by the appeal committee, the third ref was correct in his decision, and the appeal committee subsequently determined that the tackle was always illegal. I think that's an important point. He tucked his arm. There's the red card process starts off with is there foul play? If there is foul play, is there head contact? What's the degree of danger? And if that all goes up to high, then it's a red card. The only thing that could be is there mitigation? And when a tackle's always illegal, there can't be mitigation, and that's the point. And that's the point the original disciplinary didn't take into account. And then we get to the crux of it all, where it says the original disciplinary's decision to downgrade the red to yellow had been manifestly wrong. Which is quite a interesting choice of words, because it's not just wrong, or not just sort of fudging the issue. They're saying clear and concisely that it's manifestly wrong. So that brings up all sorts of other issues as well when we're going into a World Cup. I see just to finish it off, they say the mandatory mid-range was 6 weeks, taking all in considerations into account, including the player's acceptance of foul play, clear demonstration of remorse, and his good character. They agreed to a 4-match suspension. Now, I think normally if he didn't have the record, he probably would have got half to 3 for apologising and all that. Interesting, it's 4. I would have probably thought 5 matches was probably where I was going for. But I suppose, this is a matter that we should move on to. There's bigger things. There's rugby on the field we need to concentrate on. So I think 4 is probably fair considering all the circumstances. Yes, and then coming back to those other questions. The original committee, David Croft, Adam Castleton, and I'm forgetting the third guy now, 2 of the 3 of them are on the World Rugby's Disciplinary Committee for the World Cup. So now if they've got a decision like this, which is clear to everybody, every ref I've spoken to has said to me that there's no ways they could have come to that decision. It was clear the tackle was wrong from the beginning. And everybody else in the rugby world seems to agree, which is a very strange thing to see happen, that it was a illegal tackle. Then you got to ask, if they got it so wrong, how can they be trusted in an important World Cup to get decisions right as well? So, I've spoken to local sort of officials here, and they actually rate Adam Castleton as a disciplinary officer. They say he's quite a good lawyer, and they sort of gobsmacked by the fact that he, got this so wrong, and so I don't know what the explanation is, but it'd be interesting to see what World Rugby does now, because if any of those guys stand in a disciplinary case in the World Cup, you can see lawyers raising all sorts of interesting questions about precedents and things like that, and how they got things wrong, and testing the boundaries. So I think it's going to be a very interesting way to watch what happens. It'd be interesting if World Rugby quietly withdraws them from disciplinary cases, or just doesn't give them any disciplinary cases to sit in as well. So that's going to be very interesting to watch. But the question remains, even though the wrong has been righted now in terms of the decision, what happens to the original committee who made that wrong decision? Do they go on to the World Cup and hear other cases, or do they get somehow demoted, or something happens to them? Interesting. I'm not a legal scholar. I'm not sure how this rates, but I think this is pretty embarrassing for World Rugby. This is not something they'd want to have happen. It's not something we'd want to see repeated again. So I think there probably will be consequences. It won't be made public, but I think slowly behind the scenes there'll be a couple of consequences for those involved. So Owen Farrell's 4 weeks. He's going to be a marked man at the World Cup. He's going to be watched intensely. Billy Vunipola, who that probably is going to get what he deserves, but has sort of been dragged into this process. And unfortunately, all the questions around England have been for all the wrong reasons. Not about their play, not about the fact that it's been 5 games since they scored a try. There's a lot of problems in that England camp, but they tend to do that before World Cups. We've seen that. I got smacked by a leaf over here. But we tend to see that before World Cups, and it's going to just be interesting. It's going to be an extremely interesting World Cup. But watch this channel, we'll be doing more of these videos, and let me know your thoughts. Do you think it was a fair result or not? Cheers.